Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. Quick shout out to my newest patron, INRJ. Thank you for choosing to support the channel. From the Department of Energy, thank you, Lyle. In 2021, 87% of US truck freight tonnage was shipped less than 250 miles. Shipments below 100 miles accounted for 44% of the total tonnage, and shipments between 100 and 249 miles accounted for 43%. Before I saw this data, in the United States, coast to coast, it's about 3,000 miles. So I would have thought that a lot of this tonnage would have been at least over 1,000 miles traveled for some of these trips, but clearly that's not the case. This, of course, sets up incredibly well for the Tesla Semi. From Autopilot on X, Tesla has filed and received a special use permit for the Giga Nevada expansion. Currently, the applicable zoning ordinance has a 75-foot high allowance for the building height, so in this permit, Tesla has requested a maximum height of 115 feet, and the plan is for the building to end at around 110 feet with 5 feet for a buffer. The extra height will be to accommodate manufacturing equipment. Also of note, they said the design for this expansion has not yet been completed. Sounds like Tesla's new hire for this project, Michael, and his team will be tasked with finishing the design, getting all of the final permits, and then construction on the expansion can begin. Piedmont has been pushing for a new lithium mine in North Carolina now for years. This one that would actually supply Tesla. Well, they're still facing pushback, and Tuesday at a meeting, apparently things got a little heated because Piedmont CEO did not show up to the meeting, instead electing to send some technical employees, and the residents are complaining that the mine could cause the wells in the area to run dry. Piedmont signed a deal with Tesla in 2020 for lithium from North Carolina, but then it was paused because they found a new mine in Quebec where they could supply Tesla with lithium from that mine, but Piedmont only has access to that supply in Quebec until the end of 2026. For the North Carolina project, Piedmont will need the board to approve a zoning variance before it can build the project, and the officials have said that's not going to happen until Piedmont gets a state mining permit, of which they've been trying to do now for 2 years. Those of you in Australia can now get about 3,100 free supercharging miles buying a used Tesla between now and the end of September. Investment Minister Luhut Panjaitan and Elon met last week, apparently for about 2.5 hours, twice as long as expected. They said Tesla is said to have agreed to make a final decision on building a manufacturing plant by the end of this year. Part of the reason we haven't heard much about this is because some Indonesian officials annoyed Elon by making premature statements about Tesla's plans for Indonesia. The source said the two sides talked about a car-making investment of at least $1 billion, but indicated it may depend on whether the government is prepared to make significant concessions, which have so far stalled negotiations. They said the problem is in our court because we have not allowed Elon to do what he wants. The most important thing is that everyone has to know what they will get. Any concessions will have to be agreed on by the president, Joko Widodo, and will almost certainly require parliamentary approval. The good news: all agreed that a conclusion will be reached by the end of this year, and Elon plans to visit Indonesia as early as next month. Tesla has to make some studies on a location and other nitty-gritty issues, and then they will pull the trigger. No surprise, but the Indonesian president wants to develop an entire EV production line, from the smelting of raw materials and battery and vehicle manufacturing to final assembly. These talks have been going on for 3 years plus, and Panjaitan complained that Elon was making too many demands and that Tesla needed to meet domestic investment guidelines. And this one's new to me. They said Elon was put off by the government wanting EV investors to partner with the state-run Indonesia Battery Corporation to allow for integrated development and to promote technology transfers. Tesla really is in such a great position. Let's say they pick another location, not Indonesia, for the next Gigafactory. Well, that's going to make Indonesia a bit more desperate, and maybe they'll give Tesla some more concessions because eventually, most likely, we'll see a factory here. But it does not have to be the next one. Xiao Tashushu, that's a fun one to say, shared this image asking what's the difference. And Corey, formerly from Monroe, said refreshed instrument panel top cover. Larger area of A surface is integrated into one piece. Model 3 Highland ? On the apparent size difference, there could be some angle and or lens distortion going on, so be careful with that. We got this video of the Cybertruck at night, and a lot of people were talking about the turn signal. You can see it's the red, same color as the brake lights. Many people would prefer an amber brake light and a bigger one at that. And playing it back, it looks like there's no repeater turn signal anywhere on the front of the vehicle, at least that you can see. However, I did want to point out some of the lighting on these Cybertruck Alpha prototype builds, pre-production builds, have not been final variants. What I mean by that is the lighting and the wiring, which has sometimes been exposed, has clearly not been the final production plan. Here we have a new company to keep an eye on, this one called Volex, who apparently just signed a deal with Tesla to produce some of the NACS connectors for the rest of the EV industry. Volex has become a licensed partner of Tesla, and they'll supply authentic couplers or connectors to EV and charging infrastructure companies under the agreement. And they said, we're stocked and ready to immediately supply automotive original equipment manufacturers and charging infrastructure suppliers. And their chairman said this further validates Volex continues to be the trusted manufacturing partner of Tesla's charging technology. Their website tells us they've been manufacturing hardware for both AC and DC type charging. With demand for the NACS connector set to explode, this will of course help Tesla with more distribution, as Volex has various manufacturing locations around the world. S.E. Robinson shared one of the cooler images of the Cybertruck, a portion of that I've seen to date. You may notice the 6 lug nuts on this wheel variant instead of 5, which can oftentimes indicate a higher capacity, which yes, is better for carrying heavier loads. Today, GM CFO said they are still struggling to ramp production of their EVs. And he said the Lyriq and the BrightDrop vans have been affected by an issue with assembling battery modules, which we've already heard. He said GM built more than 1,000 Lyriqs in July, but don't forget in early 2022, GM said they were going to build 25,000 Lyriqs in Tennessee last year. And so far in the first 6 months of this year, GM delivered fewer than 2,400 Lyriqs to customers. And he had the audacity, one may call it, to say that Cruise has largely solved all the technology challenges. The CEO of the Mahindra Group in India said, "We've seen tremendous competition in India over the last 20 years, so Tesla or anyone else coming in does not faze us." Anish Shah is the CEO, and my friend Anish, you do not want to poke the bear. And I'm sure there is some level of competition in the Indian market, but when it comes to EVs, I can almost guarantee you they've never seen anything like what Tesla has to offer. I mean, it's not like India is some sort of EV powerhouse already, as EVs currently only make up 2% of the market due to the absence of adequate EV infrastructure. He continued, at one point, Mahindra was written off when all the global majors were coming to India. Today, we continue to have the #1 market share in SUVs from a revenue standpoint. We know that Elon loves Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, so again, it seems like only a matter of time before Tesla sets up shop in India, and we'll see how the competition elevates for Anish and Mahindra at that point. Tesla has another big-time hire in Austin, the director of operations for the Gigafactory, who previously has worked at Bosch in many different roles, including factory automation and hydraulics in North America, and leading a few different automotive plants in the United States and Mexico. And he did mention a product portfolio that includes wiper systems, so clearly he was brought in to work on the Giga Wiper. Here we have the upcoming EV Cadillac Escalade IQ. This car will have a 24 module battery pack sized at 200 kilowatt hours, and the car will start around $130,000, going on sale summer 2024. The first all-electric Escalade model has an estimated range of 450 miles and an 8,000 pound tow rating. Perhaps the big attention grabber, if the aforementioned specs weren't already, is the 55-inch screen across the entire dash, which is actually 2 screens, one 35-inch for the driver and a 20-inch display for the passenger, with Google built in, and reportedly Apple CarPlay will not be supported. The passenger screen is said to have the ability to play a video while in motion, but it's polarized so the driver can't see it. There's also a separate 11-inch touchscreen to adjust climate controls and the doors. We know the EV market needs some bigger full-sized SUVs, so what do you guys think about this one? I want to highlight one thing from a recent survey talking to some OEMs and dealers. When it comes to the future pricing model for EVs, 48% of dealers believe some form of non-negotiable pricing like what Tesla does will be a part of the retail model of the future, with only 20% expecting non-negotiable pricing to be the exclusive means for selling EVs. And 32% think the traditional MSRP pricing will remain for EVs into the future. And when it comes to the EV agency model, which is basically what Tesla is doing direct to consumer, no dealers, only 22% are projecting that change, likely due to the strength of state franchise laws in the US. These survey results are from OEM executives, and 35% of those executives don't think an agency model will materialize in the US auto retail marketplace. 43% remain unsure, and 22% think it will be introduced in the United States in the next 5 years. If this article tells us anything, it's that the OEMs are clearly in a state of transition, both themselves and their dealership model, while Tesla has a clear path sprinting ahead and everybody else is kind of looking around wondering what's about to happen. You can find me on X and Instagram linked below. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Please like the video if you did, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.